Hey everybody, Brandon Simmons here. Just want to give you an afternoon update here on WKYC.com and also on our social platforms. Of course, it is Thursday, May 7th. And again, this is our afternoon update. Some big news came today out of the press conference with Governor Mike Dewine that he does daily at 2 o'clock. Of course, we didn't get a press conference yesterday, but we did get one today, and he had already hinted that there would be some big news coming for some industries, and it appears we now have that. So he just announced moments ago that he will be allowing personal services to begin again on May 15th. So that's the day you're looking for barbershops, salons, day spas, all of those sorts of groups will be able to open their doors again on May 15th. Of course, this was after the governor had received some advice from some of those advisory groups who were making recommendations on how they could reopen safely and still take care of customers and employees at the same time and make sure nobody was putting themselves in harm's way. So May 15th is the date for that. He also made an announcement for restaurants as well. Restaurants will be allowed to reopen for outdoor dining on May 15th, and then indoor dining will resume on May 21st. So those are two very important dates for people in the restaurant industry. So May 15th is outdoor dining. May 21st is when you'll be able to begin indoor dining again. And honestly, for me, that's a big deal because I like going out to eat, right? I think a lot of us enjoy that. So obviously, as things begin to reopen, things will be different than what they have been in the past. Obviously, the governor is telling us that this will not be just a reopen and go back to normal. Social distancing and many other safety efforts will still be in place. I know what they specifically talked about for restaurants, that things may look a little different. So some restaurants may be using plexiglass to separate different dining parties. Dining parties will still be limited to 10 people or less. So for instance, if you show up with your party and you have 10 people in attendance, there will still be a social distancing of 6 feet between where your party sits and where the next party sits. So they're still trying to keep those social distancing things in place. Now, as far as employees, the restaurant advisory group was also put together and gave recommendations. They talked about masks and gloves and those sorts of things. They said you probably will not see a lot of those employees wearing gloves. And the reason behind that is they would rather they wash their hands instead of having a false sense of protection that comes from gloves. So that's one thing that you will pay attention to as you're out. So you may not see gloves. That doesn't mean they're not being clean. You also have to remember that the personal services industry as well as the restaurant industry are both already heavily regulated by the state. So there are already inspections on places like hair and nail salons where they have to have licenses in place and make sure they have a clean environment. The same for restaurants, where the Ohio Department of Health already monitors and inspects these different sorts of places. So a lot of safety protocols are already in place. However, they will be expanding a lot of these protocols to make sure that all of us are able to be safe as we go through this pandemic and this new age of living, of course, with coronavirus out there. So that's the latest update. May 15th, a big date for personal services. And then May 21st, again, for indoor dining. May 15th is also the date for outdoor dining, but May 21st is the date when the restaurants will get back to what I guess we're still going to call the new normal, although I know a lot of us don't like to say new normal, but that's really what it is right now. Let's shift over and we're going to talk still coronavirus, but also want to give you a quick update on the numbers. So we have 555 new cases reported at 2 o'clock today from yesterday, bringing our total to 22,131 total cases here in Ohio. Our total number of deaths here now is also up to 1,271 cases. That's an increase of 46 from yesterday's numbers. Now, again, as we go through and look at these numbers, the key thing we want to pay attention to is whether or not the numbers are increasing more dramatically than they have in the past. And the answer right now to that is no. 555 new cases is a lot, but it is still in line with the trends that we've seen thus far. So we're not worried about having another spike at this point. And we haven't seen a huge increase in deaths either over what we've seen in the past week and what the trends have showed us. So right now it seems like we're still kind of in that plateau area, still kind of waiting for things to start to go on a downward trend to where they get lower. Governor Mike Dewine did speak today, and he also said that testing is something that we still have to work on. We still have to test more people, do more of them, and obviously as we do more testing and continue to do more testing, we may see a lot of those numbers increase rapidly on some days, but that could be due to the test numbers. Now, the one thing we don't have is we're not able to compare the number of tests that are given to the number of positive results that we're seeing each day, or this increase in number of cases. So it's kind of hard to weigh in how much the testing has to do with the number of positive cases we're seeing. Either way, the good news again though is that we're not seeing our number of new cases each day increasing significantly. What we're doing is we're seeing those numbers stay sort of flat or level, which kind of hints to us that we're still in that plateau area. So that's where we are with the numbers. Nothing to really be too alarmed about right now, just kind of giving us that daily update as they always do. Moving on now, some national news too. President Donald Trump, obviously, he was visiting a factory, a Honeywell factory in Phoenix, and a lot of people noticed that he wasn't wearing a mask. Despite there being signs around the factory saying that he should wear a mask, and also just the natural protocol of wearing a mask when you're around large groups of people. He did tell reporters that he couldn't quote help it if they didn't see him wearing a mask, but he did have one and he wore it during portions of it. But also he said that a staff person for Honeywell advised him that he did not have to wear that mask during the public portions of his visit to that factory, and that's why he didn't have one on. So a lot of people kind of paying attention to that. And another reason they're paying such close attention is because there are now reports that President Donald Trump's personal valet driver has tested positive for COVID-19. So with him being in such close proximity to someone who has tested positive, a lot of people are worried why he isn't wearing a mask and why he isn't taking the proper precautions as stated by the CDC and many states' health departments about wearing a mask. So that's what's going on with the president. We'll keep an eye on that and kind of just pay attention to what happens coming from that. One other thing we want to talk about COVID related is the unemployment numbers. Obviously, a lot of people out of work. You can see Ohio's trying to get the economy restarted here locally, but more than 1 million people have filed for unemployment in Ohio over the last 7 weeks. And the numbers that we've gotten from the Department of Jobs and Family Services show that only half of those who have filed have actually received their benefits. So we know based on the last few weeks, as we've done stories, that there are a lot of people who simply can't get through the system, can't apply as quickly as they want to. But we want to encourage you to keep doing so, because as you can see with 1 million people filing, there are obviously people who are getting through, and it may just be a slow process. So continue to do that. And obviously, as we get closer to restarting Ohio's economy here next week, May 15th, a lot of people will be going back to work. Hopefully that eases the burden that is on that system. So keep paying attention to that and keep trying if you are one of those people who is trying to file for unemployment. Also, some national news. Frontier Airlines kind of got some pushback after they said they wouldn't guarantee an empty middle seat during the pandemic if you didn't pay extra money. So they were charging money. You bought your seat. Let's say you want that seat right next to you to be empty, of course, to maintain social distancing. They were charging people a fare of $39 per flight, and sometimes more. So the CEO came out and said they recognize the concerns that are raised, that it looks like they're profiting from safety, and that was never their intent. So that's what the CEO, Barry Biffle, said. So they're kind of backtracking on that now, and it appears you will be able to get a middle seat to stay open next to you during this pandemic, and it won't cost you any money with Frontier. So that was one that they had to reverse course on, and it's a good thing that they're reversing course. Shouldn't be making money off of empty seats next to you. One more thing I want to touch on. Obviously, I talked about flyovers earlier with our military flying over and taking care of our nurses, kind of giving a salute to nurses and healthcare workers and first responders and teachers, everybody all over the country who are continuing to work hard through this pandemic. We want to say thank you to all of you as well. And as you know, we have our Three Loves Nurses, and we love teachers as well. We have that campaign going, and we want you to continue to send us your stories of people that you know and people that you know that are taking care of others, whether they be healthcare workers or teachers or first responders, all of those sorts of stories. We're always looking to highlight them in any way we can, whether it be on our social platforms and also in our newscasts throughout the day. So be sure to keep sending us all of that information so that we can share those stories with the world. That's it for our afternoon update here on Thursday, May 7th. We hope you continue to join us on all of our social platforms, and be sure to tune in on WKYC Channel 3 and all of our newscasts throughout the day. See you guys later.